Introduction to Lin'an Buye Hou. Yang Yuan, a gold medal public relations figure seeking media, stepped into the living Qingming River with 1 foot. He originally intended to build a Song Dynasty version of the Youqiu Company to help the famous actors in Lin'an solve their problems, but unfortunately, by chance, he entered the officialdom. So, let's make a change according to my heart, including the succession of power, the struggle for the establishment of a crown prince, the battle for quarrying stones, the reign of Wanyan Yongdai Liang, and the execution of Ere Pang by Li Liangzuo. Yang Yuan, please kill Qin Xiang. What evidence do you have to accuse the Jin people of being implicated in the scheme of loyalty and righteousness? There's no need for it. Welcome to Bookmark. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The author is working hard to save the manuscript, and the babies they like will be collected and brought home first. We look forward to the future together. Chapter 1. This knife is very gentle. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Nu was born in the north and is known for the elegance of the people from the south. Today, when I see a gentleman, I am indeed handsome and elegant. Although I have the posture of a willow, I am willing to recommend myself to you, but being able to spend the night with a small official is enough. Wugu Luaninga's face was full of tenderness, as she spoke in a seductive tone and walked towards Yang Yuan. As she was in her prime, she had braided hair, a bun, and a heart-shaped ruby pendant in front of her forehead. Several small braids playfully hung over her shoulders, with lacquered eyes and rosy lips. Her skin was as fresh as snow, her small nose curled up and her lips were full of energy. A narrow-sleeved brocade-edged jacket with lake water green, and a pair of white and silver obscene pants, exuding an extremely beautiful posture. She didn't wear any stockings, a pair of delicate and graceful feet painted with danku, tiptoed on the soft carpet like a straight cat, and her swaying waist thus had a moving rhythm, 3 parts deliberate and 7 parts natural. Because there is a 3rd degree of deliberate intent, it exudes a green and astringent feeling that a girl deliberately does. Because it is natural, it further highlights the innate capital of a beauty. Yang Yuan, however, cautiously took a few steps back until his body collided with the fragrant table behind him, knocking down a few citron fruits from the lacquer plate onto the ground. Only then could Yang Yuan stop his steps. Yang Yuan doesn't even believe a single punctuation mark in what this little girl from the Qin Dynasty said. Where did he come from, handsome and charming? Is he just like this now? A straw hat, a short brown shirt, tied around the waist with a wrinkled sweatshirt and a bamboo water pipe. Wearing a pair of crotch-tight pants and leggings with thousands of layers of waves, with a pair of grass shoes that need to be stitched up under my feet. Although his appearance is indeed not bad, his appearance is nothing to do with being elegant, handsome, and charming. There is fraud. There must be fraud in it. But what does this noblewoman of the Qin Dynasty want from him? He's just a delivery guy. That's right, there was already some takeout business during the Song Dynasty. However, ordering takeout at this time is called Suo Huan, while the delivery guy is called Xian Han. Yang Yuan received this business from Hosher Street in Lin'an City and sent it all the way to the foot of Gaoting Mountain. Miss, are you planning to repay the debt with meat? It doesn't make sense. This is the Banjing Mansion, specifically designed to entertain the envoys of the Qin Dynasty. Just by looking at the mountain-style incense table with his horse hooves propped upside down with one hand, one can tell the true identity of the owner here. Xiangji is 3 compartments high, and low, with a beautifully woven rattan jar placed in the lower compartment, with several seasonal flowers scattered inside. A lacquered plate in the center, containing more than 10 juicy lemon fruits. At the high grid is a delicate small incense burner, with animal smoke rising up. Looking at the furnishings in the room, 1 stool, 1 table, and 1 table, it is none other than the beautiful texture and gorgeous color of golden nanmu. Jinsi nanmu was widely used in furniture production by wealthy officials and nobles, starting from the Song Dynasty. Although Banjing Mansion was a post station specially designed by the Song Dynasty to receive the envoys of the Qin Dynasty, a room with such expensive and exquisite furniture must have been owned by an important member of the Qin envoy group. Will she be greedy for an idle man who sends So Huan? It's not a Japanese woman who came to the great Song Dynasty to do the cultivation. Any man with a bit of rationality would not believe this pie that fell from the sky, even if it was particularly bright and dazzling. Moreover, Yang Yuan is still a person who came to this era more than a year ago, by chance, from the 21st century, and entered into this era. In Yang Yuan's original world, he was a crisis PR for Youqiu Media. After just over a year in the industry, he had already made a name for himself and gained the respect of his boss. Of course, his master's careful guidance was also indispensable here. His master's name was Yan Min, and Miss Min was 3 years older than him. She was the first gold medal PR for Youqiu Media, an elegant and intellectual urban beauty. With Miss Min's devoted guidance, Yang Yuan is also someone he has seen before. How could he be seduced by such clumsy and inexperienced means? Inga spoke these shameful lines, and her white jade-like face couldn't help but blush. It's really shameful to learn the lines from the Song Dynasty script. If it weren't for Yang Yuan becoming a dead person soon, she wouldn't be able to speak up. Hee, don't hide from me, little official. I just want to have a good night with my husband, not to eat you. Inga nodded coquettishly at Yang Yuan's chest. The daughters of the Song Dynasty humbly referred to themselves as slave families, while slaves were affectionate self-proclaimed in coquettish and foolish occasions. Inga deeply studied sinology and understood it. Due to Yang Yuan's withdrawal, Inga's courage grew even stronger. She placed a soft and gentle hand on Yang Yuan's shoulder and breathed a sigh of relief, saying, "The weather in May is already very hot in the south. The slaves have prepared fragrant soup. The young official should go take a bath first, okay?" Wugu Luniangu nodded to the side, next to which was a lotus-patterned screen inlaid with marble reliefs. Behind the screen, there was a faint mist rising, and from this angle, one could also see the corner of the oval-shaped bathtub exposed on the edge of the screen. Yang Yuan lifted the lacquered food box in his grip and said, "Young lady, I'm just a messenger." "I'm not a messenger." Wugu Luaninga was amused by Yang Yuan and gave a smile. He tilted his head, and the bird looked at him like a person. Under the ingot-shaped earrings, the small and exquisite golden acorn earrings jumped lively on her shawl braid because of this action. "Little official, you are also very honest. You are not as brave as a slave, are you not beautiful enough?" Wugu Luaninga blinked at Yang Yuan. Yang Yuan increasingly felt that there was a big conspiracy hidden within it. This Jingguan, as an important place to entertain the envoys of the Qin dynasty, is theoretically impossible for an idle man to enter. When he was delivering the So Huan, he only wanted to deliver it to the entrance of the Banjing pavilion. Unexpectedly, a little maid named Amon led him, and the gatekeeper Song Guosher dared not stop him. He unexpectedly entered the room and met this girl who pretended to be a flower lover. Although Yang Yuan was not yet clear about her purpose, she instinctively felt that a great crisis was about to occur. "Miss, please take care of yourself." "I am." Before Yang Yuan could finish speaking, a hurried voice suddenly came from outside. "Miss, the little prince is coming soon." It was her, the voice of the little maid Amon who brought him here. Yang Yuan immediately recognized her identity from the voice of the caller. Wugu's discussion of Inga suddenly became anxious. What kind of women chasing men in the veil? The words of Song people are all deceitful. They are so shameless, and this stinky man is not willing to take bait. Wugu Luaninga was in a hurry and took a step forward. With a wave of his hand, his emerald sleeve rolled down, and a pair of boots and knives, which he held behind his wrist, shone out and suddenly landed on Yang Yuan's neck. "If you, a lazy man, were to take offense at the sight, I wouldn't feel guilty even if I died. But you wouldn't be fooled. The knife patted Yang Yuan's cheek and Ninggu sneered, "It's just ants, why struggle? Should ants accept their fate?" "Miss, I haven't heard of it. When a man gets angry, his blood splatters 5 feet. If this blood is imperial blood, is that man still an ant?" Yang Yuan calmly asked, "I just don't understand. I have no grudges or grievances with the young lady. Why do you want to kill me?" Yang Yuan did not believe that the girl in front of her was joking. Although there was no murderous intent in the girl's eyes, there was a hint of indifference towards life. She really did not take Yang Yuan's life seriously. Yang Yuan has been in this era for over a year, and now it is the 24th year of Shaoxing, with Zhao Go as the emperor. Based on what Yang Yuan has seen and heard over the past year, he is well aware that for the aristocrats of the Qin Dynasty who were still in a slave state, slaves were not considered human beings in their childhood beliefs, and in their eyes, the Song people were no different from their slaves. Because he was convinced that the woman in front of him from the Qin Dynasty was serious, Yang Yuan became even more calm. In countless crisis situations, he has already understood a truth. The more critical it is, the more calm it is. Otherwise, you are likely to miss the only chance to turn the tables. "No, no, no, I won't kill you." Wugu Luaninga smiled and said, "I won't kill you with my own hands. The person who wants to kill you will arrive soon. You'd better be obedient, otherwise I don't mind doing it myself." She brought me over by ordering takeout, and there were at least 7 or 8 idle men delivering "Suo Huan" on Qingshi Lane. That is to say, this meat is random, as long as it is a man, she doesn't have a clear goal. She said it wasn't her who was going to kill me, but if I tried to resist or escape, she didn't mind doing it herself. She had intended to lure me to take a bath by using her color scheme. Obviously, if the little prince mentioned by Amon came and I was taking a shower, it would be more advantageous to face her. Yang Yuan quickly identified several key points from limited information and made the most reasonable inference. Does the young lady want to fabricate a scandalous scandal to self-harm? Is it difficult to become the person you want to get rid of, but cannot get rid of, the little prince? Isn't the young lady having an unsatisfactory engagement with him? Seeing Wugu Luaninga's suddenly widened eyes, Yang Yuan knew he had guessed right. With his mind racing, Yang Yuan immediately lowered his voice. Although the situation was urgent, his voice remained clear and deep. Psychologically speaking, such voices are more persuasive. "Miss, you're killing 1,000 enemies and losing 800. What's the benefit of clearing your name? Besides, if you take the life of an innocent person, won't you feel guilty? From then on, your conscience will be uneasy, you won't be able to enjoy tea and rice, and you'll be depressed." Wugu Luning's lips twitched slightly as he spoke of the diamond-shaped red lips, saying, "Well, there's no need to be so serious." How could it not be serious? After all, you are such a kind girl. Well. Inga felt that his words were a bit difficult to refute, so she had to remain silent. Yang Yuan continued to work hard. Moreover, even if your goal is achieved, your reputation will be ruined. With such a bad reputation, will your parents be furious? How can you feel embarrassed to confide in a man you truly admire in the future? Wugu Luning furrowed her delicate eyebrows when he said it. She couldn't help but understand what Yang Yuan was saying, but without taking the powerful medicine, she had no hope of terminating her engagement with the Wanyan family. What could she do? She is also very desperate. Yang Yuan took advantage of the heat to hit the railway and said, "Actually, you don't need to use this win-win method, girl. I can help you." Wugu Luning looked at Yang Yuan with suspicion and said, "You?" Yang Yuan slightly straightened his chest and said, "Not bad. It's me. To be honest, I'm seeking media and gold medal PR, it's me." "What kind of media, what kind of public relations?" said Wugu with confusion on Inga. "That's not important, as long as you know, besides being an idle person delivering meals, I also have another level of identity, the Youqiu receiving envoy. Inga's eyes suddenly shrank as Youqiu read www.youqiangshu.net with a hint of murderous intent in his eyes. Are you a secret spy of the Song Dynasty? The tip of the knife tightened in his throat, and there was already a tingling sensation on his skin. Yuan quickly explained, Miss, I misunderstood. Youqiu is a martial arts organization that specializes in collecting money to help people with disaster relief and trouble elimination. Don't scare me. Inga sneered. Yuan said, every word I say is true, and I can really help you. I have a way for you to achieve your goal without self-fouling. Really? What can you do? Wugu Luan Inga began to be skeptical. At this moment, the urgent voice of the little maid Amon came from outside the door. Miss, I saw the little prince. He is going to enter our yard. Amon, act according to the plan. Wugu Luning gave a command to the outside and then looked at Yuan. I'm sorry, it's too late. In time. Yang Ji suddenly raised a finger and pushed the boot knife that was resting on his neck outward. The blade of the boot knife was very sharp, although Inga had not yet had time to exert force, the sharp blade cut through Yuan's fingertips. Inga shouted, What are you doing? Yuan didn't answer. He had already turned around and rushed towards Miss Inga's embroidered bed. From the half-lifted curtain, Yuan saw a handkerchief next to the embroidered pillow. Because Yuan pounced on the bed, Wugu Luan Inga, who thought he was going to escape, blocked her. She suddenly froze and stared at Yuan in confusion. I saw Yuan pouncing on the embroidered bed, reaching out and grabbing the snow blue orchid double-dot-sided embroidered handkerchief next to the pillow, shaking it away. Then, he quickly smeared the blood from his fingertips onto the snowy blue handkerchief. Subsequently, Yuan turned around and waved the blood-stained embroidered handkerchief in Ing Ji's hand, with two beautiful curves in his eyes. Chapter 2. Palm Techniques Descending from the Sky. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ah, what a bastard. Although Wugu Luan Inga has not yet been officially appointed, she is still an engaged woman. The head of the Wugu Luan family taught her some common sense between men and women, and when she saw Yuan's actions, she suddenly understood. As soon as she understood, there was a touch of red, brushing the floor and climbing up her cheeks from under her snow-white neck. Inga wants to fabricate a little lover for herself, fabricate a rumor that she wants to climb a wall, and provoke her bastard fiancé A to voluntarily terminate the engagement. However, she just wants people to misunderstand that she wants to sleep with a man, but she doesn't want people to misunderstand that she has already been slept with by a man. There is a big difference here. Inga was extremely angry and scolded with a shameless sound, then with a shout, he swept his whip leg towards Yuan. Her legs are straight and round, and her slender feet are fair and beautiful. Even with the powerful force of sweeping through her ribs, those who see her will first feel a sweet feeling in their hearts, and then feel pain. Yuan clearly didn't want to experience the feeling of sweetness before bitterness. With his arms crossed and an iron door latch, he met Inga's long legs. How can this idle man who sends clues know martial arts? Inga crouched on the ground holding her calves, frowning and moaning in the snow. Yuan bumped into her and felt some pain in the cut on his finger, so he put the injured finger into the mouth and sucked on it. However, his mentality is now stable, and from the reaction of this noble woman in the Qin Dynasty, he has already grasped the other party's mentality. The girl from northeast China, who has bumps, although has a bit of a strong personality, it is obvious that there is also a limit to being spicy. I'm going to kill you, bastard. Wugu Luan Inga gritted his teeth, stood up in pain, and raised his boot knife. Yuan shook the blood-stained embroidered handkerchief with confidence and said, You can't beat me, let alone kill me. So, you can't take this handkerchief. When others see this handkerchief, the girl thinks, will they think it's blood from my hand? Upon hearing this, Inga immediately froze and shook along with the handkerchief in Yuan's hand. Her bright face had swollen into eggplant color under the long corridor of Tsushui. There was a burly young man wearing a left lapel brocade, braided hair hanging down his shoulders, and ears adorned with large golden rings. He held a waist sword that resembled a goose feather sword in his hand, followed by 7 or 8 guards who were like wolves and tigers. They strode towards him with meteors, and their brocade boots rustled loudly on the blue brick ground. This person is the little prince of Jin, Wanyan Yongdai, who represents the Qin Dynasty to congratulate the Tianshan festival in the Song Dynasty. The Tianshan festival is the birthday of Emperor Zhao Go of the Great Song Dynasty. Since the Shaoxing Conference, the two countries have been on a ceasefire, and during the Tianshan festival, the Qin Dynasty sends envoys to congratulate them. However, this year a prince was dispatched, and the specifications have become even more grand compared to previous years. Wanyan Yongdai and Youqiu Company are an unmarried couple who emerged from a political alliance. Two equally arrogant and arrogant young nobles are intertwined due to the interests of each other's families. How can they get along well? Since their engagement, the two of them have always been unhappy in parted ways, until they grew tired of each other. This time, Wanyan Chu traveled south to the Central Plains. His father, Xian Wanyan Zheng, specially arranged for Youqiu Company to accompany him, hoping that this young man and woman could collide with each other day and night to create sparks of love. However, now it seems that sparks have indeed collided, but love is clearly not there. Upon arriving at the flower world in Lin'an, Wanyan Yongdai was like opening the door to a new world, sleeping with flowers and willows, indulging in romance. Although Youqiu Company doesn't like him, after all, he is his legitimate fiancé A.E. He brought him to the Song, but he spends his days flirting with women. Does Youqiu Company want face? So, Inga found Wanyan Yongdai, who was drinking flower wine in the brothel, and got angry with him. Before leaving, she even lifted the table of Wanyan little prince and said fiercely to him, "Since you dare to steal fish, then I dare to fish. From now on, neither of us will have to care about each other." Although Wanyan Yongdai did not like the marriage arranged by his family for him, he also did not like the green grassland growing on his head. Today, he heard from his subordinates that a young Song man was secretly introduced into his boudoir by his fiancée A.E.'s maid. Thinking of the harsh words she had once said to him, Wanyan little prince immediately rushed over with a murderous aura. "Maid Amon, have you seen the young prince?" Amon hurriedly welcomed him from the corridor. Wanyan Yongdai ignored her and a hint of panic appeared on Amon's pretty face. She quickly opened her arms to stop her and said, "Little prince, my girl is taking a shower. Little prince, let me go and report it to you first." "Oh." With a flick of her hand, Wanyan Yongdai sat down in the nearby flower bushes, overwhelming a patch of flowers and plants. Meanwhile, Wanyan Yongdai rushed past her like a gust of wind. In the room, seeing the embarrassed and helpless appearance of Youqiu Company, Yang Yuan's heart was settled. The situation between the host and guest had already changed. Yang Yuan calmly said, "Young lady, you don't want to be misunderstood either. You have already been given by an idle man." Yang Yuan shook the brocade handkerchief in her hand again, and Inga's eyes were about to burst into flames. She wished she could immediately pierce 17 or 18 blood holes in Yang Yuan's body, but she really dared not take action at this moment. "Girl, you'd better make a decision quickly, otherwise it's really too late." "Little prince, you can't force yourself to break through, little prince." Amon was carrying his skirt, chasing and shouting. Inga heard Amon's anxious shouts and finally showed her weakness. She stomped her foot in hatred and angrily said, "Okay, I promised you." Yang Yuan's tense heartstrings suddenly relaxed. "However, that person has already arrived." Inga sneered, "You can save your dog's head first." The Banjing Pavilion is located in the ancient port of Qian on the Shantung River in Lin'an. There is a star bridge on the Shantung River, which leads to Banjing Pavilion on one side and Hangzhou City on the other. The Banjing Pavilion is surrounded by mountains such as Gaoting Mountain, Huanghe Mountain, and Fury Mountain, surrounded by mountains and rivers like Qingjiao, with extraordinary elegance. As the embassy for the placement of the Qin Dynasty envoy, this place is naturally guarded by officers and soldiers. According to the rules, outsiders entering and leaving the inn must hold a license plate issued by the government. Without a license plate, they are not allowed to enter, and those who agree to enter must also be accompanied by a designated person. However, rules are meant to be broken. In fact, if the Qin people were to bring in people, the guards of the Song Dynasty would never dare to talk too much. So, with Yang Yuan, the delivery boy, led by Ah Man, the close mate of Inga girl, he can have unobstructed access to the Banjing pavilion. If it weren't for the people brought in by the Qin people, only officials and staff of the Guangoujiangua Xin could enter and exit the Banjing Hall, because the Guangoujiangua Xin was originally set up to entertain the Qin envoys. However, to avoid being named taboo today, the Guangoujiangua Xin has been renamed to be in charge of Jiangua Xin. At this time, the Gua Xin was known to be under the supervision of Duke Li Rong. In the Yunyuan Hall of Banjing Hall, an old man dressed in a small official robe from the State Information Office was sitting on a bed with a middle-aged man from the Qin Dynasty who was around 40 years old. This golden man clearly had an extraordinary identity. He sat cross-legged, wearing a purple gold brocade embroidered robe, with a gold brocade wide waistband and a pair of white socks revealing small yellow flowers under the robe. His hair was tied with a golden forehead. The old man across from him was leaning on a leaning table, his legs naturally stretched out, and his sitting posture was relaxed and comfortable. 2 fragrant teas were placed on the small table in front of them. The tea had already cooled down, and their conversation had come to an end. Lord Xian, please handle this matter, the old man, dressed in the attire of a junior official in the National Trust Office, smiled at the Qin people across from him. The old man is in his 60s, with clear eyebrows and eyes, a sparse and cheerful appearance, and 3 small ridges under his jaw, exuding a majestic aura when he looks around. Although his complexion was slightly pale, as if his qi and blood were weak and he was plagued by illness, his long-standing aura did not match the attire of a small official in the National Trust Office. Moreover, he even referred to the middle-aged man from the Qin Dynasty sitting across from him as Lord Xian. The father of the Qin Dynasty envoy, Wanyan Yongdai, the little prince, was the prince of Dejin Xinhuang Wanyan. This person in front of him was obviously hiding Xingzang and quietly arrived at the Prince of Dusong's Xinhuang Wanyan with his son's delegation. How could he really be a petty official if he could sit opposite the Prince of Qin, with a dignified demeanor and a demeanor that never fell behind? Although Qin Xiang can rest assured, this move not only concerns your Qin family, but also relates to the interests of our Qin country. Wanyan will definitely make every effort to help, achieving the beauty of jade. Wanyan chuckled and agreed. Qin Xiang. This handsome old man is actually the Prime Minister of the Great Song Dynasty. The Prime Minister of the Great Song Dynasty, also surnamed Qin, who else could he be? A prince of the Qin Dynasty, hiding his head and tail in a mission to the Song Dynasty, had a private meeting with the Prime Minister of the Song Dynasty, dressed in a small official robe of the State Trust Office. Once this matter is made public, it will be a catastrophic event. Qin Xiang smiled slightly and said, "You should repay Li for throwing peaches. Believe in the things entrusted by the prince, I will also arrange them properly here." After Qin Xiang finished speaking, Youqiu stood up on his knees while reading at www.youqiu.net. With a flick of his clothes, Wanyan followed behind him. There were 2 Qin guards and 2 men dressed in the colors of Guixin soldiers standing in front of the door. Qin Xiang walked to the door, and a servant immediately knelt on the ground, took his boots, and respectfully put them on. After putting on his boots, Qin Xiang turned around and bowed to Wanyan, who was standing in front of the door, saying, "I have come here secretly, but I cannot speak up. If I believe in the prince, there is no need to send him off." Wanyan nodded, of course he wouldn't send it far away. The other party wouldn't dare to speak up about this secret. It is a secret that he came here. The deputy envoy Han Zhenyu is a person of Wanyan Liang, and he also needs to be cautious, so he can only hide in the courtyard where Inga lives. Only here, so it is inconvenient for the deputy envoy to come. Wanyan Yongdai arched his hand and watched Qin Xiang leave. Qin Xiang walked towards the side path with two guards dressed in the attire of Guixin servants, clearly without any intention of leaving the main entrance. They went out from the side road, crossed a moon gate, and just turned to an old and clumsy pine tree. On the stone steps of the nearby pavilion, a man jumped out. This person has a short brown straw hat, a sweat scarf tied around his waist, and a bamboo water pipe hanging around his waist is still swaying in the air due to his rapid movements. Because they were in the Banjing mansion, the two guards of Qin Xiang, dressed as servants of the Guixin office, were clearly not on guard, so they stood still in shock. When they tried to react, it was too late to stop the incoming people. The person's body soared into the air, and before they landed, a slap hit Qin Xiang's face. Pop! A loud slap in the face caught Qin Xiang off guard, like a withered leaf in the cold wind, spinning and falling. A tooth flew out of his mouth and sadly fell into the pine branches of an old tree not far away. Chapter 3. Idle Men Causing Troubles. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Yang Yuan landed on both feet and shook his numb palms, causing his tongue to burst with spring thunder. His loud voice shook the roof tiles to tremble. Xinyan thief, I brought a food box from a long distance, my legs have run thin, but now no one admits it. Bullying an honest person. I'll give you a big slap in the ear first, let out this bird-like anger in my heart. If I want to provoke my anger again, I'll burn your bird into ashes with a fire. Yang Yuan slapped the junior officer of the State Information Office, and immediately started shouting loudly. He just had the intention to escalate the situation. As for the consequences of beating a junior official in the National Trust Office, it's not a big deal compared to being killed by the enraged prince of the Qin Dynasty. Besides, slapping a minor official in the Guixin office is not a crime of beheading. As long as he doesn't die, his brother can bring him out. That's right, after more than a year of coming to the Song Dynasty, Yang Yuan has already had a relative here. Wanyan Yongdai, along with 7 or 8 wolf-like guards, hurriedly arrived at the door of Wugu Luaningji's boudoir. Just as they were about to kick the door, they suddenly heard someone drinking from behind. Wanyan Yongdai was the envoy of the Qin Dynasty. Upon hearing the commotion, he immediately waved his hand and left the two of them to guard Inga's door. He then charged towards the back of the boudoir with his sword. As soon as he saw the situation behind him, Wanyan Yongdai was taken aback. Others didn't recognize who that old official was, and how could he possibly not recognize him? But now this powerful prime minister of the Song Dynasty has collapsed to the ground, with his thin and fleshless cheeks swollen high and blood stains on the corners of his mouth. Wanyan Yongdai didn't know what to do for a while. What's going on, what's going on? The commotion on this side alarmed a few people under the eaves ahead. Those few people were waiting here to receive Qin Hui, and one of them was around 40 years old, with a slightly black skin and no need for a chin. He was none other than Li Gonggang, the eunuch of the Imperial Household Information Office. Li Gonggang ran closer and saw that his brain was buzzing, and his legs felt a bit soft. Even Qin Hui, who officials should be a little wary of, was actually beaten by someone. Qin Hui was also stunned by Yang Yuan's slap. He fell to the ground, and when he looked up at Yang Yuan, there were still golden stars popping up in front of him. Li Gonggang hurriedly ran towards Qin Hui and exclaimed in fear, "Qin! Qin!" Qin Hui suddenly turned his head to look at Duke Li, his eyes sharp. Li Gonggang felt a chill in his heart and immediately changed his tone. He pointed his halberd at Yang Yuan and shouted angrily, "Qin! Catch him, let me catch him! How dare you cause trouble in the Banjing Hall? It's like turning against him." Two attendants disguised as servants of the Guoxin office hurriedly stepped forward and helped Qin Hui up. Qin Hui calmed down and quietly took 2 steps back. I stood behind the two of them and lowered my head slightly. Another soldier from the Guoxin office stepped forward and pressed down on Yang Yuan. Yang Yuan jumped and shouted, "What are you doing? What are you doing? You spineless monkeys with birds, do you only help outsiders bully your own family? I came all the way from Hosher Street to deliver food, and even rented a donkey for transportation. When we arrived here, they said that no one had ever asked for help before. Isn't that treating me like a monkey?" Upon hearing Yang Yuan's words, Qin Hui furrowed his brow slightly. Is this person's appearance just an accident? Last year, when Qin Hui was traveling from his bestowed throne to court, he encountered an assassin named Shi Quan, holding a guillotine and stabbing him. At that time, Qin Hui had been serving as a prime minister for 12 years and had never encountered an assassin. Due to his long comfort, his subordinates also relaxed, to the point where he was killed by Shi Quan and almost killed. Finally, Shi Quan was outnumbered and captured alive. He was sent to the Dali Temple for justice. 5 days later, on the Yuan Shao, filled round balls made of glutinous rice. Flour for Lantern Festival, he was dismembered and died in front of a large crowd. From then on, when Qin Hui traveled, there were at least 50 skilled hands following and protecting him, both inside and outside. This time, it was because he was in the Banjing Pavilion and came disguised, with not enough manpower around him, that Yang Yuan took advantage of it. However, if this was just an accident, caused by a slacker who had been tricked, then the matter would have to be reduced to a minor one. Otherwise, once the situation gets big and someone discovers that they are secretly visiting Banjing Hall, it will ruin his big deal. Thinking of this, Qin Hui squinted his eyes slightly and shook his head at Li Gonggang. Although Li Gonggang caught Yang Yuan under his command, his corner of the eye remained fixed on Qin Xiang. Seeing Qin Xiang signal him to calm down, he knew that Qin Xiang had some concerns in his heart and couldn't help but secretly let out a sigh of relief. He is the person responsible for arranging a secret meeting between the Prime Minister of Qin and the Prince of Jin, so why not worry about this big matter being exposed? You troublemaker. Although Li Gonggang had the idea of turning big things into small ones, he couldn't afford to start from scratch. He pretended to scold Yang Yuan, but Wanyan Yongdai impatiently pulled him aside, causing Li Gonggang to stumble. Wanyan bent forward 2 steps, held down his waist knife, and said with a stern tone, "Who are you?" Yang Yuan's arms were clasped upside down by 2 Guoxin soldiers, but he was not afraid. When he saw the young man being questioned, his hair was hanging behind his ears, and he had a pair of big golden rings on his ears. He had a bald head and a small bangs in front of him. It was speculated that this person was the Wanyan Yongdai little prince. Youqiu reading www.youqiu.net. Yang Yuan raised his voice and exclaimed, "So Yang Yuan, Lin'an is a leisurely man. How about that? I brought snacks all the way from Hosher Street to you, but I still apologize for it. I see that you are dignified and have an extraordinary demeanor. You must be a noble person. Even if you are a commoner, can you rely on me for this small amount of money?" The word sounded right, and Wanyan Yongdai tilted her head and a big golden ring flashed under her ear, staring at a servant beside her. The attendant understood and quickly approached, whispering, "Little prince, I am talking about this person." Upon hearing this, Wanyan Yongdai was immediately lost in interest. The result of this stirring up the masses was just an idle man who sent So Huan. His subordinates reported to him that a handsome young official had been led into Inga's boudoir by Amon, but now it seems like that's all. If this young man is really the mistress brought in by Inga, why bother creating such a big battle, afraid that others won't know he's here? At that moment, a voice with a hint of mockery sounded. "Oh, I asked who it was, shouting and screaming in my girl's yard, even more noisy than the crows on the tree. So it's you, little prince." With the sound, Inga walked lightly out of the pavilion, wearing a lake green narrow-sleeved brocade-edged short jacket, a pomegranate-colored trumpet skirt tied around her waist, and a pair of pointed double-soled embroidered shoes under her feet. Her hair was lazily tied up in a bun, damp and shiny, obviously just taken a shower and not wiped clean. As soon as Wugu Luaninga appeared, he quickly glanced at Yang Yuan and immediately moved away. Inga raised her chin slightly and sneered at Wanyan Yongdai. Didn't I tell you that from now on, I won't care about you anymore, but you don't care about me either. What are you doing in my yard again? Are you despicable? Chapter 4. Qin Changjiao's Worries. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. A person with great face, Wanyan Yongdai, was angered by so many subordinates, including Song people, and even a plainclothes prime minister of the Song Dynasty. Seeing with his own eyes that Wugu Lunying did not regard him, his heart was also angry. Wanyan Yongdai immediately retorted and said, I, Wanyan Yongdai, am the envoy of the great Qin dynasty. Among all the things in this Jingguan, which one is not under the jurisdiction of this prince? Wugu Luaninga exclaimed, Oh my God, you're so imposing. Don't even play such a trick with me when you're finished with your face. Don't worry about anyone, don't worry about me. I want to return to Zhongdu immediately. If you have the ability, just send me back. I hate you when I see you. Wanyan Yongdai was extremely angry, and he didn't want to quickly send this unruly and stubborn girl out 1,000 miles away. Why doesn't his father agree? Inga scolded Wanyan Yongdai and then glared at Yang Yuan, saying, Didn't I tell you that I've never asked anyone to ask for help or ordered food before? If you don't get out of here quickly and cause trouble in my yard, do you want to die? As Inga was speaking, Amon also grabbed his skirt and chased after him panting heavily. As soon as Yang Yuan saw a man, he immediately called out, It's her, she brought me in. Ask her, is it the snack you ordered? Is it possible that I came all the way to deceive you? Inga glanced at Amon and asked, Amon, who is this person? Amon served Inga since he was young, and the two of them had a perfect understanding. As soon as he saw the look from his own girl, Amon knew there was a change in the plan. Although a man still didn't understand what had happened, he obediently said, Miss, this idle man was summoned by a servant. After a man finished speaking, he angrily said to Yang Yuan, Didn't I tell you to wait in the hall? Why did you offend my girl? Yang Yuan exclaimed loudly, I was just waiting in the hall. It was this little lady who came out from inside and asked me who I was and why I came here. I told her, but she didn't admit it and still wanted to drive me away. Oh, if you don't give me money, you want me to leave. Can I work hard for nothing? There is no such reason in the world. Amon quickly explained to Inga, Miss, didn't you say you wanted to taste the delicious food of the Song Dynasty yesterday? I remember it in my heart. This morning, I sent someone to the city to search for some snacks such as sugar-rich cakes, crab roe piluo, and honey and sesame cakes. I wanted to surprise the girl, but I didn't inform her in advance. Inga said with a stern expression, What did you do by leaving him alone in the hall? Amon blushed and said shyly, I suddenly felt a bit anxious. I thought I could go and make things easier first, and then I would ask the girl to pay him. Although she deliberately lowered her voice, Wanyan Yongdai beside her could still hear clearly. He rushed over in a fit of anger. When he saw Yang Yuan slapping Qin Hui, he didn't quite believe that he was the adulterer brought in by Inga. At this moment, he heard Inga's maidservants answer each other, and his suspicion had dissipated. Wanyan Mian had an extremely good face, and in front of her arch-rival Inga, she absolutely didn't want to show any concern for her. She was asked to grab the handle and use it to make fun of herself in the future. Wanyan Yongdai coldly said, The Banjing mansion is the residence of my Dujin embassy, and no one is allowed to enter or leave without permission. Inga, I hope you can abide by the rules in the future. Wugu Luan Inga refused to be outdone and said, My yard, it's best not to step in with your dog legs. I hope you can also abide by my girl's rules and you're done with your face. Wanyan gave a cold smile and brushed her sleeves before leaving. Although there was another Qin Hui next to him, his whereabouts were hidden. In front of so many people, Wanyan Yongdai could only pretend to be ignorant to avoid suspicion from others. Inga saw that Wanyan Yongdai had been scolded away by herself, so she proudly turned to Amon and said, "You can bring him in to withdraw money." "Who is this girl? Will she rely on his account?" "Shoo." After Inga finished speaking, she glanced at Li Gongong again and gave a faint command, "I misunderstood Li, the security guard, and that's why I asked him to cause trouble. Don't make things difficult for him, send him out so badly. Otherwise, people will think that I am bullying others by taking advantage of my power and not willing to even demand money for a few won." Li Gongong quickly glanced at Qin Hui hidden behind the servant. Qin Hui covered half of his cheek, lowered his head slightly, without any sign. Li Gongong quickly smiled and said, "Don't worry, young lady. Our family won't have the same understanding as the idle man." Wugu Luaninga raised his chin and walked back to his boudoir with pride. Man quickly called Yang Yuan to follow. When Yang Yuan had just launched a surprise attack on Qin Hui, the food box had already been placed on the railing under the corridor. At this moment, he quickly mentioned it again and followed behind Amon. Li Gongong saw that they had all left, and besides Qin Xiang, there were only a few of his confidants. He cautiously approached Qin Hui and nervously called out, "Holy Xiang." Qin Xiang took out a handkerchief from his sleeve and gently wiped the bloodstain from the corner of his lips, saying indifferently, "Send someone to investigate the details of Yang Yuan." The great Song Dynasty attached great importance to intelligence work and developed a very mature intelligence system as a result. There are three main intelligence agencies in the Song Dynasty. One of them was the Imperial Secretariat, which was under the jurisdiction of the Imperial Court. This was the most powerful and controlled spy organization among the intelligence agencies of the Great Song Dynasty, covering the entire country. The collection of foreign intelligence, political, economic, and military intelligence, as well as the management of dispatched spies, are all handled by Jizhufang. The second is the Imperial City Bureau, a spy organization directly under the Emperor, but its scope of operation is limited to Lin'an. Emphasis is placed on supervising officials, combating terrorism, and collecting information from the public and various aspects of the market to provide intelligence assistance for the Emperor's decision-making. The third is the Military Intelligence Agency of the stationed troops on the border. As for the Guixin office, it appears to only provide services specifically for foreign envoys and belongs to the diplomatic system. However, most of the staff and soldiers of the National Information Office are tasked with espionage duties, responsible for monitoring and investigating foreign envoys they come into contact with. Qin Hui has been in charge of the affairs related to the Qin dynasty. After many years of operation, although the personnel of the Guixin office received salaries and wages from the Song dynasty, they were actually owned by Qin Hui alone. Therefore, the suspicious Qin Hui asked Li Gongong to investigate in order to determine Yang Yuan's identity. Upon hearing this, Li Gongong breathed a sigh of relief and immediately leaned over, saying, "Yes." Qin Hui pressed a handkerchief around the corner of his mouth, took a step, and Li Gongong quickly followed him, his spine bending down with inertia. Yang Yuanrua was just a coincidence, and Qin Hui, who came from humble attire with concerns, had no intention of arguing with an ant-like character. Everyone is a prime minister, is Qin Hui not as measured as his Wang Jiefu? But he must first confirm that Yang Yuan was indeed just a coincidence. He is already old, and the most important thing now is not how to consolidate and expand his power, but how to smoothly transfer his power. I came to Banjing Hall to conspire with Wanyan Yongdai for this matter. He must decisively erase any variables or accidents. Chapter 5, First Order Business. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Since Qin Hui became the Prime Minister for the second time, for more than 10 years, he had to rely on wind and rain. Throughout the court, there was nothing he wanted to do that he could not accomplish. However, at the beginning of this year, the final result of the Lock Hall trial came out, and his grandson Qin Sun, who was firmly determined to be the top scorer, was pushed to the position of exploring flowers. In order to elevate his grandson to the top scorer, Qin Hui worked hard for a long time, but unexpectedly, this was the final result. This may seem like a small matter, but it sounded the alarm for Qin Hui. Why is the official family, who has always been generous with rewards to the Qin family, so concerned about this matter? Today, Qin Hui, as the prime minister, controlled the political power of the great Song Dynasty, while his son Qin Ji, as the chief envoy, controlled the military power of the great Song Dynasty. The elite main force of the Song Dynasty was the Forbidden Army, but the three Yamen Forbidden Army belonged directly to the emperor. The Privy Council was also unable to control him, and the influence of the Qin family never penetrated into it. This became Qin Hui's biggest concern, and the three imperial guards became the most unpredictable variable for him to smoothly pass on his power. So, when he was escorting his grandson's pediatrics exam all the way, the candidate blocked his grandson's path and he knocked him down. The examiner blocked his grandson's path, so he knocked him down. Finally, when he elevated his grandson to the throne of first place in the provincial examination, the great Buddha of the official family suddenly descended, shattering the dream of the Qin family becoming the top scholar. His fear instantly awakened. The confidence of the officials comes from the three Yamen Forbidden Army. So, he'll find a way to capture the three Yamen Forbidden Army. And what about Wanyan Yongdai? For over a decade, Wanyan Yongdai has been the most cooperative partner between the Qin dynasty and him. But since a few years ago when Wanyan Liang usurped the throne and became independent, slaughtering the royal family and excluding dissidents, the days of Wanyan Yongdai have been difficult. Wanyan Yongdai also needs his support to expand his strength in the northern region to stabilize the situation. Both sides reached an agreement at once, which led to today's secret. At this moment, Qin Huiyan cannot be cautious. Yang Yuan followed Amon back to the boudoir, and Inga had already sat down on an official hat chair with a golden sword. A section of the silver silk-colored ankle pants under her skirt was also exposed, highlighting the beautiful curves of her calves. She gave Amon a glance, and Amon immediately closed the door knowingly. Inga looked up and down at Yang Yuan, his gaze like a knife, as if pondering where to strike the knife in order to kill the pig in front of him. However, after being eager to try for a while, Inga's murderous aura finally dissipated and she said with a stern and playful face, "You said there's a way to help me. What can you do? Tell me. Before today, I didn't even know there was a girl like you." Yang Yuan said calmly, "Even now, I still know nothing about you, girl. I don't even know your name. If I say I have a way to help you now, do you think I'm just perfunctory?" Inga's willow eyebrows were about to erupt, but Yang Yuan had already taken it on. "I need to know all about your situation in order to prescribe the right medicine. I said I have a solution because as long as you tell me all about your situation, I will definitely come up with a solution." Amon looked at Inga and then at Yang Yuan, as if he understood them all, but there was also a feeling of playing riddles. Inga looked at Yang Yuan's confident appearance and hesitated for a while before deciding to trust him for once and treat the dead horse as a living horse doctor. "Okay. I'll trust you once. It's just that I can't say it clearly in a few words, and you're not suitable to stay here for too long now." Yang Yuan immediately said, "We can make an appointment in Lin'an City." Inga glanced at Amon and said, "Amon, where did you get the food from? Can you still find that household?" "I can find it." "If you find that household, you can find him, right?" Yang Yuan smiled and said, "Miss, you don't need to knock anymore. Yang won't run away." Inga snorted and proudly raised her chin, saying, "You are familiar with Lin'an City, your time and place. I will go find you." Yang Yuan thought for a moment and asked, "How about the Zongwazi Wang Mama tea house tomorrow at around 5:15 midnight?" Inga patted the armrest happily and said, "Done. Now, you go." Yang Yuan reached out his hand and made a gesture of begging for money, and Inga pouted angrily at Alman. Alman went to the back room, opened a money box, took some money from it, and returned to give it to Yang Yuan, placing all the food in his food box on the table. Yang Yuan received the money and said with a friendly expression, "I haven't consulted yet, Mississippi, may I have your name and surname?" Wugu Luan Ingu. Yang Yuan patted his hand and said, "That's a great name. Miss Inga, we Youqiu work for people and the fees are always very high. For me, any problem that can be solved with money is not a problem. That's all, I'm leaving now." Yang Yuan turned around to leave, and Inga suddenly stood up from the chair and shouted, "Wait." Yang Yuan turned back in surprise and saw Inga hesitating to speak, her face flushed with swelling. Yang Yuan suddenly understood and quickly raised his hand. The handkerchief hidden in his sleeve drifted towards Inga. Inga grabbed it in her hand and hastily hid it in her sleeve. Then, with a guilty glance at Amon, she forced herself to remain calm and said, "Go away." Yang Yuan rode a donkey and set foot on the star bridge while reading. This star bridge is built with blocks of blue stones, exquisite and sturdy. The 4 drum stones, 16 lotus pillars, and each bridge railing on the bridge are all carved with exquisite patterns, including flying horses with their heads raised and hooves, carp leaping over the dragon gate under the bridge, rafts were carrying firewood, charcoal, bamboo, wood, and grain bound for Lin'an city, or ships of silk, porcelain, and tea brought out of the city. White gulls glided over the high masts with ease. Yang Yuan let out a soft sigh, feeling relaxed and happy. It has been over a year since he came to this world. From the beginning, he was lost and lost. After trying various methods but unable to wake up from this absurd dream, he accepted the reality of living in this world from then on. However, how can a person who has seen the future be willing to be mediocre? Half a year ago, he was thinking about what he could do. During his days as a delivery man, he became familiar with the world, observed it, integrated into it, and pondered his future path. In the end, he decided to return to his old profession and engage in crisis public relations. Crisis public relations has always existed from ancient times to the present. However, in this era, there is a timely reign that is eager for justice and righteousness, and there are those who seek family and friends to compete, but there is no one dedicated to this profession. He wants to be this person, but he lacks funds, opportunities, and connections. For this, he has been working hard to prepare. So today, when he was stabbed in the throat by the steel knife of Wugu Lunying and on the brink of life and death, he suddenly thought that he could take advantage of this opportunity to officially launch his Song Dynasty version of Youqiu public relations. On the donkey's way to the bridge, a gust of wind came and Yang Yuandan had a feeling of Ere Pang rising from the wind every day. Chapter 6. Human Fireworks on the Qingming River. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At this time, Lin'an is the richest in the world. When small boats rise from the sun, they fish through various water gates in Lin'an city, delivering the freshest vegetables, fruits, fish, snails, shrimp, and crabs from the suburbs to restaurants and tea shops along the coast of Yuqiu. The peasant girl sitting at the bow of the boat was still humming a little song, carefree and carefree. The tea houses, wine shops, and art schools in Lin'an city have also awakened from the darkness and are once again immersed in singing everywhere. With such a large population and bustling markets, the streets and alleys of Lin'an are incredibly clean and devoid of filth. The urban management of the Chinese nation has an extremely long history. The method of yin is to discard dust from the Tao and cut off its hands. The method of Qin Lian sitting together, abandoning dust on the path, is called Xing. During the Tang Dynasty, it was said that filth and filth were found in streets and alleys, with a staff of 60. Only by strictly enforcing the law and prohibiting residents from littering and littering, can we naturally not do so. Road toilets and specialized urban sanitation cleaning institutions have also emerged for a long time. The Song Dynasty did particularly well in this regard, setting up sanitation institutions such as the street department. The sanitation workers in Lin'an City wore uniform blue robes and cleaned the streets and alleys. Yanlu painted bridge, wind curtains and green curtains, market pearls and pearls, households with abundant luo qi. The descriptions in these texts are a true portrayal of Lin'an City. But no matter how beautiful the description in the text is, there is no liveliness in it. As soon as he entered the city, Yang Yuan walked into such a vivid picture. What he heard in his ear was the soft language of Wu Nong, as well as the sound of He Luo. What he witnessed with his own eyes were the crowded pedestrians, the fireworks of the human world all the way. Since he stepped into Lin'an City, ink painting has no longer been a freehand style, but a realistic style. Go down Yujia, and when you reach Taipingfang, Yang Yuan turns right and passes through Taipingfang to reach Hosher Street. In terms of location, this is equivalent to the central area within the second ring road of later cities. Yang Yuanqi's donkey was rented from the Lu's mule and horse shop on Hosher Street. The main intercity transportation during the Great Song Dynasty was donkeys, and those with the conditions to raise horses have always been in the areas of Yanzhou, Shaanxi, and the western regions. During the founding of the Song Dynasty, there was a congenital deficiency, and by the southern Song Dynasty, there were even fewer conditions for raising horses. Therefore, if it weren't for high-ranking officials, wealthy individuals, or military personnel, it wouldn't be your turn to ride a horse, just like today's Lamborghini, which is not affordable for everyone. The ox cart is too slow, the sedan chair is too expensive, and only the little donkey can endure hardship and hard work the most. However, the rent for a donkey can still reach 100 won per day, while a common person in the Song Dynasty earns between 100 and 300 won per day. So Yang Yuan was furious and caused trouble because he had been sent all the way to the Banjing Hall, but no one had signed for it. It's understandable. Yang Yuan returned the donkey at Lu's mule and horse shop. After coming out, he passed a stone memorial archway, which was a lane paved with blue stones. The alley is not actually narrow, it's just that there is a river in the alley. The river flows gently, and there is often a stone step laid directly into the river in front of the doors of the residents, making it convenient for them to fetch water and wash clothes. There are also small bridges on the water that connect both sides, including wooden and stone bridges. On both sides of the bridge, signs stand tall and flags are displayed. This is a street of snacks, which not only includes local delicacies, but also flavored snacks such as blood belly soup, chicken hair vegetables, lung filling, pig pancreas and hu cake from Bianliang. Because the other end of the alley leads to the Secretariat Department, many small officials and officials from the Secretariat Department often come here to search for food. Yang Yuan had just walked in from the stone memorial archway in Qingshi Lane when a rapid sound of dudududui chopping the table came from a nearby bittern shop. Hearing the sound of the knife, Yang Yuan became more and more angry. He was very experienced and stopped at once. He also pulled the passers-by nearby. With a whoosh, something flew out of the braised meat restaurant. Yang Yuan is a iron plate bridge in a blue stone alley. The young man's feet are like cast iron, his body is as straight as a board, and he tilts up like a bridge, as if frozen in place. There is only one thing, pressing against his nose, shooting towards the opposite bank. There are many wine jars stacked in the shop across the bank, and there is also a wine character on the flag at the entrance. There is a man in his 50s in the tavern, with no flesh on his face but a beard all over his face. He raised his hand and accurately caught the thing thrown over, but it was a braised chicken butt. The man with a thin beard grinned and grabbed a mouthful of the wine jar with one hand, then poured half a bowl of wine into a large bowl. The wine jar with wine in it may not weigh more than 30 pounds, so he grabbed and poured the wine with one hand, but it was as steady as iron casting. After pouring the wine, he slammed the wine jar and threw the chicken butt into his mouth, chewing it heavily. He then picked up a bowl and took a big sip, laughing loudly and saying, "What a damn sweet taste. Old trick, your chicken butt is so braised that you can't say it." If there's anything else, just throw it over. On the other side of the braised meat shop, a chubby man was holding a pointed kitchen knife in his hand, glaring angrily like an angry toad. The pointed kitchen knife in the hands of the chubby man is similar to the Western-style kitchen knives of later generations. Early Chinese kitchen knives were actually this type of pointed kitchen knife. However, since the Song Dynasty, Chinese cuisine has become increasingly diverse, with the extensive use of slicing, shredding, and segmentation techniques. Pointed kitchen knives have become outdated, and more effective right-angled square knives have emerged. However, this chubby man once said that his ancestors sold braised meat, and this kitchen knife was passed down from his ancestors, which has extraordinary significance and is not willing to be exchanged. Upon hearing the sarcastic words of the bearded man selling alcohol, the chubby man burst into a fierce curse and said, "Oh my goodness! Did you, the street-bumping thief, speak ill of me again in that room?" The bearded man sneered and said, "You have a dirty heart and think that others are not good people either. I sell wine to customers, and of course, I need to be more attentive to customers at the book garden www.zhaozuiyuan.com. Why are you feeling guilty?" The chubby man was very angry, so he used his kitchen knife to chop the chopping board and roared loudly, "If you talk to the guests, then talk. Why do you keep looking at me with sly eyes while talking? It's clearly malicious." The bearded man pouted and said, "You're not a water-spirited little lady. Who cares about you? Do you think you're a little lady from the Song family? Oh my, you deserve to have gouged out your mouth and cut your tongue. I cut you alive today." The chubby man was furious and grabbed his kitchen knife as he rushed out. Yang Yuan quickly stepped forward and stopped him, persuading him kindly, "Uncle Ji, calm down. You calm down. And Uncle Lao go, don't argue all day long. Harmony is the key to making money. If you keep scolding like this all day, can you still do business?" Yang Yuan pushed Uncle Ji back to the shop and grabbed a piece of braised chicken from his chopping board, throwing it into his own mouth. The bearded man across from him smiled and said, "Erlang, you're busy with your work. Don't pay attention to him. That old man will feel uncomfortable if he doesn't cause trouble for a day." The chubby man surnamed Ji who sells braised chicken and braised meat, and the bearded man surnamed Go who sells wine. Yang Yuan heard from the young lady of the Song family that the two of them and Song's father used to join the army when they were young, and now they both do business in this alley. The old Plan sells meat, the old Go sells wine, and the old Song opens a snack shop, which was originally a mutually beneficial business. But for some unknown reason, Ji and Go always kept shouting and cursing. Yang Yuan tried to persuade the old man to sit down angrily, but only then did he give him another piece of chicken and walk towards the nearby Song family snack shop. Under the stone memorial archway, a man came out quietly. He saw the scene just now. Seeing Yang Yuan walk away, he finally came out of his hiding place. This person's name is Youqiu, a spy from the State Information Office, who has been monitoring from Banjing Hall all the way to this place. Chapter 7. The Big Brother of the Imperial City Department. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Youqiu is in his 30s and is tall, with a pair of bull eyes. He wears a round-necked shirt and a scarf on his head. He is also playing with a folding fan in his hand. He saw Yang Yuan passing by Ji's braised food restaurant and walked into the Song family snacks, with familiarity, then strolled to the entrance of Ji's braised food restaurant. Youqiu originally wanted to inquire about Yang Yuan's background from the chubby shopkeeper, but he saw him holding a sharp knife, staring at a pair of bull eyes, and panting heavily. After hesitating for a moment, Youqiu gave up the idea of asking him a question and slowly walked to the entrance of the Song family snack shop, glancing at the household registration in front of it with the corner of his eye. The Great Song Dynasty implemented a household registration system, where a sign was hung in front of each house with information about the residents living in the area. The person quickly scanned and learned from the information on the household registration that there were a total of 4 permanent residents in this household. The head of the household is named Song Qingcheng, and there is an unmarried daughter named Song Lucy. In addition, there are 2 long-term tenants, one named Yang Che and the other named Yang Yuan. Judging from their similar names and ages, they should be 2 brothers. Based solely on this information, one cannot go back to the shop to make a payment. However, if one enters the store recklessly, they may be afraid of disturbing others. Yu Jiguang pondered for a moment, then turned his head and saw a woman squatting under the stone steps by the river, pounding clothes, and walked over. Yu Jiguang walked to the riverbank, followed the stone steps down 2 steps, lifted his robe, squatted down on the stone steps, and smiled at the woman who was washing clothes, saying, "Madam, I can ask you something." The woman who was washing clothes turned around and looked at the person's attire. If it weren't for being an official or a merchant, but also a scholar or a well-off family background, she put down her clothes-pounding stick and politely smiled, saying, "Officer, you're polite, but I don't know what you want to ask." Yu Jiguang pointed to the shop next to Ji's braised food with a folding fan and asked, "Auntie, there is a young man who delivers suah huan at the Song snack shop. I wonder who his surname is." The woman asked in confusion, "What are you doing to inquire about someone else's affairs?" "Oh. It's like this. As a spy of the State Information Office, Yu Jiguang naturally handled such small situations with ease. To be honest, my master is a merchant in the raw silk business, and he only has 1 daughter under his command. He has always wanted to recruit a diligent and clever young man to join in." Upon hearing this, the woman immediately became interested and smiled at Jiguang, saying, "Your master has a good eye. Erlang is indeed a good child. It's just a pity that you came late." Yu Jiguang asked, "Why? Is it possible that this young man has already been married?" The woman smiled and said, "I haven't been married before, but if you had met him a year ago, you would have had the opportunity to invite him in. But now, it's impossible." How to say this? You may not know, official. The young scholar who sent the demands was surnamed Yang and named Yang Yuan. He only crossed over from the north and south more than a year ago, begging for food and clothing all the way. It's pitiful. If you meet him at that time, he will naturally rush to your house and become a son-in-law. The woman smiled and said, "It's quite a coincidence." Yang Yuan and Yang Che, the high-ranking official who has been renting a snack shop in the Song family, have quite similar lives. Both of them have the surname Yang, and their ages are not much different. This Yang Che high-ranking official also has 5 brothers who have been lost for many years. Do you think this is too coincidental? Yu Jiguang smiled and nodded, "Not bad, it's a bit too clever." The woman smiled and said, "At that time, the young lady of the Song family who helped him became suspicious, so she left him in the shop until the high-ranking official Yang Che came back and let him meet with Yang Yuan. Hey, guess what? You don't have to guess." Yu Jiguang also knew what was going to happen, but he still had a humorous mindset and asked, "What's going on?" The woman clapped her hands and exclaimed excitedly, "This Yang Yuan is precisely the biological brother left behind by Yang Che, a high-ranking official, in the north when he was young. It's quite a coincidence." Yu Jiguang's gaze flickered and he slowly said, "That's indeed quite a coincidence, but I don't know who Yang Dogwan is." The woman proudly said, "Don't think that all the households in Qingshi Lane are ordinary people. That Yang Dogwan is the personal affairs officer of the Imperial City Department." The Imperial City Department, have the officials heard of this yamen? Yu Jiguang's eyes suddenly shrank, but his face still carried a calm smile and he vaguely replied, "Oh. The Imperial City Department. He, who among us in Lin'an Prefecture hasn't heard of the Imperial City Department?" The woman said smugly, "That's right. I heard that the officials of the Imperial City Department can be seen at any time. You think, although Yang Dogwan can't afford to buy a house in this city for the time being, it's impossible for his brother to visit someone else's house. Do you still want his face? Our ancestors will all be ashamed to follow suit. The woman shook off the water on her hand and asked enthusiastically, "Hey, do you think your family wants to find a new heir? I have a distant nephew in my old age, but I don't know where your family lives and how much wealth you have. How old is that girl in your family, and what is her appearance and character?" To be honest, it's actually our girl who took a liking to Yang Yuan, that's why I was ordered to find him here. If someone else takes him back, I'm afraid it will make our girl unhappy. It's not easy for me to handle things alone, so. Thank you for getting to know each other, Auntie. Yuqiu casually thanked the woman and walked out of the alley. As soon as he turned around, his eyes were already shrouded in darkness. Imperial City Department. This idle man who sends Soa Huan, Youqiu reading www.youyukangshu.net, his brother is actually a matchmaker in the Imperial City Department. So, is this idle man really going to the Banjing Pavilion to see off the demands? Or rather, was he instructed by his older brother? In fact, Qin Hui's secret meeting with the Jin people was a great secret, and only Li Gonggang and a few confidants around him knew the truth in the entire National Trust Office. Yuqiu, who is now sent to investigate the details of Yang Yuan, is not sure why he wants to investigate Yang Yuan. Li Aban's statement to him was that he suspected this person to be more than just an idle man, and asked him to investigate thoroughly. But it was said that Yang Yuan's elder brother was a detective in the Imperial City Department, and Yuqiu had his own brain teased, which led to hostility. Because both the Guixin office and the Imperial City office were spy agencies of the great Song Dynasty, there was an inherent competitive relationship between them. And since the National Trust Office was completely controlled by Qin Hui, it has also been branded with the Qin Xiang Pai. What about the Imperial City Department? It belongs to the Forbidden Army system. The Forbidden Army system is a presence that Qin Hui has not yet been able to control, not only because the Forbidden Army was directly under the Emperor, but also because the formation team of the Southern Song Forbidden Army came from the old tribes of Yu Fei and Han Shizhong. These two generals former subordinates, who can look up to the Qin bandit. Therefore, the relationship between the Imperial City Office and the State Information Office became even worse. In this situation, Guixin Exchange has a strong sense of territorial awareness towards its own 1 acre and 3/4 of land. What Yuqiu guessed at this moment was that the Imperial City Department had crossed the border, extended its hand too long, crossed the trust offices of other countries, and intervened in the affairs of the Jin embassy that should have been under their responsibility. Naturally, he was extremely dissatisfied in his heart. Yuqiu walked out of Qingshi Lane, his pace getting faster and faster. He had to immediately report this matter to the security guard and show some respect to the Imperial City Department. Chapter 8. The Beautiful and Meaningful Little Chef. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When Yang Yuan walked into the Song family snack shop, there were not many customers in the shop. At this point, it's not time to pick up guests yet. We'll have to wait until the lights are on at night, and the snack street will be bustling with customers. There are only 5 or 6 tables in the front hall of the Song family snack shop, and now only 2 tables of guests are sitting. Yang Yuan didn't greet the guests and quietly walked through the hall before arriving at the kitchen. I saw a petite and delicate figure carefully making a fish cutlet in front of the cutting board. As soon as he saw this figure, a touch of tenderness appeared on Yang Yuan's face. He let out a soft sigh, leaned against the door frame, and smiled as he looked at the little cook who was seriously making fish cutlet. The little cook's name is Lucy, and she is the only daughter of Father Song. More than a year ago, when Yang Yuan unexpectedly came to this world and wandered around Qingshi Lane, it was the kind-hearted girl from Lucy who made him a bowl of steaming green onion noodles to wrap his belly. Still in Lucy, he realized that he might have some connection with Yang Che, the official in charge of the Imperial City Department, so he stayed in the store until Yang Che returned from his post. Yang Yuan was a crisis public relations professional in his past life, specializing in helping people deal with various crisis events. His thinking, reaction, and adaptability were so strong. Therefore, in the afternoon, he had quietly extracted what she knew about Yang Che and his long-lost brother from the mouth of Lucy. At that time, he decided that Yang Che, the big brother, had already made up his mind. In this distant Song Dynasty, he needs to have a place to rely on and a place to settle down first. Of course, as a personal official of the Imperial City Department, Yang Che is not an ordinary person. The reason why he can easily believe that Yang Yuan is his long-lost brother is not only because Yang Yuan can tell some information that only his brothers know, but also because when the two brothers were separated during their escape to the south, he was only 9 years old and his younger brother was only 6.5 years old. It was impossible for him to remember too much. In this situation, Yang Yuan was already able to cope with Yang Che's questioning by relying on some information he had obtained from Lucy in advance. Yang Che's brother who was lost in the north was originally named Yang Zhe, but now he has changed his name to Yang Yuan, and he has provided a reasonable explanation. When he was separated from his family, he was only a child over 6 years old with no survival ability, and of course, someone would adopt him. It is very rare for him to persist in not changing his ancestral surname and only changing his name. What else can he expect from him? From then on, Yang Yuan became Yang Che's brother and together with his elder brother, became a tenant of this Song family snack shop. Yang Yuan was not as serious and square as Yang Che, so he quickly became entangled with the innocent little cook Lu Shi, and his feelings grew dark. However, the father of Lucy, Mr. Song, always looked down on him with black and white eyes, so the layer of window paper between the two never dared to be pierced and let people know. Lucy didn't notice Yang Yuan's return and was still focused on making delicious food. She likes to cook food and also enjoys researching and inventing new dishes. Whenever she makes a delicious dish with excellent color, aroma, and flavor, she is particularly satisfied and joyful. Lucy is 16 years old, with a petite figure, a round face, a bit baby fat, and a pair of lying silkworm eyes. Her bun was tied with a red ribbon in a bow, and there was also a bamboo hairpin inserted on top. There was an apricot blossom between her hair strands. At this moment, she was wearing a short shirt with a straight neckline and a double-breasted shirt. The straps wrapped around her shoulders and hugged her sleeves tightly, making it easier for her to use a knife. As a result, the arms clearly revealed the youthful and delicate curves on her chest. Lucy has a white living arm exposed and is making two-color fish swim bladder soup. Her knife skills are excellent, and the fish was sliced thin like cicada wings by her, falling piece by piece on a celadon plate. With just a slight adjustment, it was a very exquisite food. I don't know if someone is staring at her at the entrance, with a focused and innocent aura emanating from her body. That kind of focus and simplicity gives her a sweetness and purity like a neighbor sister. After setting the plate, Lucy picked up a handful of onion foam and sprinkled it gently. Fish cutlet, spring with scallions, autumn with mustard. It is now May weather, and people from Jiangnan have a variety of light flavors, so she only used some scallion foam to remove the fishy smell and enhance the taste. Lu Shi picked up the plate and as soon as he turned around, he found Yang Yuan leaning against the door frame, smiling and looking at her. "Ah, you're back." Lu Shi leaped with joy and handed the plate over. "Here, the two guests' table." Yang Yuan didn't answer and immediately collapsed and said, "Oh my, I just came back from the Banjing Pavilion and my leg broke." Lu Shi wrinkled his nose and changed his knife. With a thud sound, he cut a piece of braised fat intestines on the chopping board, pinched it between his fingers, and pouted at him. "Open your mouth." "Ah." After successfully feeding in Lucy, Yang Yuan squinted his eyes with satisfaction and chewed on the fragrant braised fat intestines while raising his right hand to snap his fingers. A fragrant jasmine suddenly appeared in his hand. This was learned by Yang Yuan and a fantasy drama master from Zhonghuazi. They only taught him this skill when he couldn't handle it. Every time Yang Yuan goes out to give gifts, he always casually folds some seasonal flowers back as a gift, making the little girl in Lucy smile and smile. Lucy was indeed very happy, with a pair of lying silkworms with curved and sweet eyes. She didn't take the flower branch, but approached, raised her face, and looked up at Yang Yuan with a smile. Yang Yuan picked off the slightly wilted apricot blossom from her hairline and carefully inserted the fresh jasmine flower between her green threads. Lu Shi tilted his head and asked with a smile, "Are you pretty?" Yang Yuan nodded vigorously and said, "It's amazing. This girl looks so attractive and rare." Youqiu reading www.youyukangshu.net is really exciting. Lu Shi used his elbow to turn him and said coquettishly, "Just be poor, bad guy's second brother." Father Song came in from the backyard with a lame leg, holding a pottery jar filled with seasoning. He looked under the kitchen and saw Yang Yuan standing facing his daughter. The petite Lucy looked up at him, smiling like spring flowers. Father Song suddenly became infuriated, just like a pot of flowers he had carefully taken care of, about to be carried away by someone along with the flowers. He slowed down his pace and quietly walked past the kitchen door, stood still in the hallway, and then shouted loudly, "What a dish from the customer! Why haven't we brought it out yet?" The two people who were gazing affectionately at each other under the kitchen, like a pair of wild mandarin ducks beaten by a stick, immediately distanced themselves. Lucy hurriedly handed the plate to Yang Yuan, gesturing outside repeatedly. Yang Yuan took the fish cutlet and turned back before leaving. Mr. Song smiled and placed the seasoning jar on a table of guests. He turned his head and saw Yang Yuan, his face sinking with a thud. Yang Yuan ignored it and quickly walked to the table where the two guests were sitting, putting down the fish cutlet. Father Song snorted coldly, but sighed helplessly in his heart. Young Jetta Lang is such a good young man, mature and steady, and he also eats public meals. He is so dignified when he speaks. But why didn't the child from Lucy fall in love with him after spending many years with him? Unfortunately, this young man from the Yang family, smooth-tongued and an idle man without a proper livelihood, managed to coax his daughter into obedient attire. Song's father is worried, can he be a good match for such a man? No, I can't let him deceive my daughter. Isn't the young master of the Yang family asking me to act as a matchmaker for his younger brother? I need to quickly handle this matter for him. Chapter 9. Empress, I want to change jobs. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Yu Jiguang left Qingshi Lane and walked into Hosher Street. In Hosher Street, there was a colleague from the National Information Office leading two horses to meet him. Yu Jiguang didn't say much either. He took the reins of the horse, pulled the saddle onto the horse, and said to his colleagues with a gloomy expression, "Let's go back immediately. We have found something, so we need to report it to the security guard as soon as possible." The two of them passed through Taiping Fong and hurried along the Imperial Street towards the Guixin office. Yang Yuan slipped back into the kitchen, and Lu Shi stuck out his tongue and whispered, "Didn't my dad scold you?" Yang Yuan also whispered, "Otherwise, I dare to come in." Lu Shi breathed a sigh of relief, but then pouted and said sullenly, "Why doesn't my dad look down on you? I dare not even mention our affairs to him." Yang Yuan comforted and said, "Well, I really don't blame your father. If you and I had a daughter, I wouldn't be willing to marry her to a useless idle man." Lu Shi blushed and said coquettishly, "What nonsense. Who said they want to have a daughter with you?" Lucy couldn't help feeling embarrassed, so he quickly turned his back and grabbed a cloth to randomly wipe the chopping board. Yang Yuan walked behind her and startled Lucy, causing her body to jump. Yang Yuan leaned against her ear, sniffing the pleasant smell of soapberry in her hair, and chuckled, "Don't have a daughter with me. Then let's have a son." "Oh, you lazy guy." Lu Shi's ears were a bit red, and his breath kept spraying on his neck, making Lu Shi feel flustered. Lucy simply lost his cloth and walked to the water tank, changing the subject and saying, "Second brother, your trip to Banjing Pavilion is so fast. I thought you wouldn't be back until evening." Yang Yuan followed over and said, "That's right. Don't you see who I am, Lin'an Buye? That's me. Shit, if you say you're fat, you'll catch your breath." As Lu Shi spoke, he extended his hands to the sink in front of Qin Xiang. Yang Yuan had already picked up the ladle floating on the water surface, scooped a full ladle of water, leaned in her hand, and slowly poured it down. Lu Shi cleared his hands, shook the water droplets on his hands, and naturally turned his back towards Yang Yuan. Yang Yuan threw the ladle into the water tank and tacitly went to help her lift her skirt. Today, Lucy wore a wine-red 100-fold skirt, tied with a small apron made of floral cloth, which accentuated her waist and buttocks with a perfect curve. It was thin and perky, and she had already begun to take on charm. When Yang Yuan helped her out of her skirt, his fingers would occasionally lightly touch her waist, whether he was intentional or unintentional. The tender face of Lucy is slightly hot, but it only pretends not to know. She likes to be so close to Yang Yuan, but shyness is inevitable. As Yang Yuan's breath gently spat out again on the green thread behind her neck, the ambiguous breath slowly flowed in their hearts. Yang Yuan untied his apron and enjoyed it. He didn't understand why a sweet sensation could be transmitted from his fingertips, even though there were only tactile nerves on his fingers. The apron was untied, and Lu Shi's body noticeably relaxed, taking a deep breath. Yang Yuandao said, "The hall is not busy. Let's take a seat at the back door. I have something to say to you." Lu Shi let out a soft and ran to the store, explaining something to her father, before running back like a little deer. In the backyard of the Song family snack shop, when the door is opened, there is a green water flowing leisurely, and a quiet river runs across the door. From time to time, small boats pass by in the river, gently tapping the previously calm water towards both sides. There are water grass swaying in the shallow waters by the river, and small swimming fish dancing among the water grass. Coming out from the back door of the Song family, there is also a stone staircase that has not been submerged in water. The two of them sat side by side on the green stone by the river. Lu Shi turned his head to look at Yang Yuan and smiled curiously, "What's going on? You look so serious." As he spoke, Lu Shi instinctively moved his butt to the side. She usually sits closer to Yang Yuan and even gets into fights, but she doesn't think much of it. But at this moment, Yang Yuan's serious expression made her nervous. Lu Shi suddenly realized that she was already 16 years old and at the age when she could get married. Could it be that he asked for a kiss as his second brother? At the thought of this, a heart in Lucy jumped up with a thump, and her hands were also somewhat out of place. She could only twist the corners of her clothes uncomfortably, afraid of hearing something she both wanted to hear and feared to hear. Yang Yuan said solemnly, "Lucy, my second brother doesn't plan to be an idle man anymore." Lu Shi was momentarily stunned, and this topic clearly exceeded her expectations. But she immediately became happy again and said, "Don't be an idle man. But did Brother Yang help you find a good job?" Yang Yuan shook his head and said, "Although you may sound prestigious, it is precisely because you are the emperor's ears and eyes that it is inconvenient to deal with other yamen offices. Your network is not extensive, and for a while, my elder brother couldn't help me find a good job. It was my own plan." Lu Shi suddenly let out his breath, his shoulders collapsed, his elbows resting on his knees, his chin propped up, and he looked at the flowing river ahead lazily, saying, "You have your own plans. So what do you want to do? TSK, you little girl, are you looking down on me?" Yang Yuan bent his finger and flicked it on her forehead. Lu Shi let out a "oh" sound and flattened his mouth in frustration at Yang Yuan. Yang Yuan rubbed her forehead again and smiled, "Little girl, don't look down on your second brother. I'm going to do a big business." Lucy pushed away his hand and curiously asked, "Do you want to do business? What kind of business?" Yang Yuandao said, it's a business that specializes in helping people solve problems. It's like when someone encounters something they can't handle, their reputation is ruined, their future is ruined, their family is ruined, they come to me, and I'll help them solve problems. Do you think this business makes money or not? I don't agree. Lucy jumped up like a cat with its tail stepped on, her face flushed with anger. Okay, young Erlang, can't you learn something good? The one young finger of Lucy poked and poked Yang Yuan's forehead angrily, saying, you have learned martial arts from your brother for over a year, just to become a young hand in the martial arts industry now. Do you know that those young hands who seek personal revenge and debt often end up either dead or disabled? I haven't finished speaking yet, why are you in a hurry? Yang Yuan grabbed Lu Shi's little hand and tried to drag her down. He searched for the book garden www.zhaoshuyuan.com and Lu Shi struggled twice to break free. However, he sat down and twisted Xiao Man's waist, making him angry and unwilling to look at him. Yang Yuan chuckled and said, when did I say I wanted to become a Qingxiao? Is your second brother's strongest martial arts? It's this. Yang Yuan nodded his head and said, how could I be a mischievous scoundrel? I'm also playing with literature. I mean using my brain to help people solve problems, understand? Lu Shi turned his head and looked at Yang Yuan in confusion. So, are you going to become a litigation lawyer? I remember when you first came to Qingshi Lane, you lacked arms and legs to write. Now, have you recognized all the characters? Can you write them all? Have you memorized all the laws of our Song court? Yang Yuan explained helplessly, I'm not going to be a litigation stick either. It's so troublesome to handle official affairs. You might say it follows the most rules, but sometimes it's the most unruly place, and I don't want to get involved. Yang Yuan gathered around Lucy and said enthusiastically, the business that second brother is going to do is to help people solve problems privately and avoid being behind the scenes. As the saying goes, those who are good at fighting have no outstanding military achievements. Lu Shi suddenly realized, oh. Are you trying to help people mediate disputes? My silly brother, you're taking it for granted. The one who can help people mediate disputes must be a respected and numerous elder, just you, with no hair on your mouth. Yang Yuan smiled wryly and said, you're thinking about it again. My business is basically not about buying and selling goods for ordinary people, but specifically about serving as a matchmaker and bridge for high-ranking officials, wealthy merchants, and solving problems. Do you think, second brother, I can be considered knowledgeable and eloquent? I don't think I can do this with confidence, I'm better than an idle man, right? Lu Shi let out a sigh and said with a disdainful expression, after talking for a long time, are you going to help others? Aren't you still an idle man? And what a shame.